It's that time of year again, people, and there's nothing like playoff hockey. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Draco Beach channel, where today we got some playoff predictions for you for the NHL playoffs. Let's get it, baby. Now, before we get into this video, I gotta say a huge thank you to everyone that tuned in to my last video just a few days ago, where I took me and my buddy Brian to the City SC match, and I vlogged the whole thing. You guys are showing an amazing amount of support on it, so thank you very much. It makes my heart all warm and fuzzy. But enough of all that talk. We got some hockey to talk about. So we're just going to jump right into it, starting in the Eastern Conference, where the Boston Bruins are playing host to the Florida Panthers. Now, obviously, everyone's talking about the Bruins this year, how they've set an NHL record for the most wins in a regular season with 65. That's quite an accomplishment. But just a few years ago, we did see something similar happen, where the Tampa Bay Lightning had previously set that same record and got swept in the first round. Now, unfortunately for the Panthers, I don't see this happening again. I think Boston takes this series quite easily, considering they've been rolling ever since October. I think they take this in 6 games. Up next, we got potentially the best matchup in the entire first round, with a rematch from last year's first round, with the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, obviously, the big question is going to be, can Toronto finally make it out of the first round for the first time since 2004? And fortunately for them, I think they will. The Maple Leafs made a lot of acquisitions at the deadline this year, picking up Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, just to name a few. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've played so much hockey over the last 3 years, making it to 3 Cup finals and winning 2 of them. I think their gas tank has just finally run on E, and I think Toronto finally gets past them. I do think it's going to go the whole distance, though. Tampa Bay is not going to go down fighting. But I think Toronto takes it in 7 games. Moving swiftly on, we have the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the New York Islanders. Now, obviously, being a St. Louis boy, my beloved Blues did not make the playoffs this year, but I did spend a few years growing up in North Carolina, so my second team is the Hurricanes. So I'm going to try and not put any bias into my predictions here, but it might come into play just a little bit. So, however, I don't think I need any bias in this prediction. I think the Hurricanes just stack up as a much better team against the Islanders. The Islanders, they don't really have many key pieces except for their goaltender, Ilya Sorokin. Now, don't get me wrong. He is probably the best goalie this year. At least he's in the conversation. So if he stands on his head well enough, they could fight the Islanders through the first round here. But I just can't see it. The Hurricanes, they've made a lot of acquisitions over the offseason last year, and they've just been playing really good hockey. Obviously, that says so by winning their division this year. I think the Hurricanes win this one. I'm going to go a clean sweep, 4-0. Finally, in the East, we've got the New Jersey Devils taking on the New York Rangers. Now, this matchup really piques my interest because you have 2 totally different teams going up against each other here. The New Jersey Devils are a very young team. They've barely even hit their window of contention yet because their team is so young. And you have the Rangers, who at the deadline this year picked up a bunch of big names, and just trying to mesh all that together before the playoffs, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So it's going to be an insane battle between these 2 teams. Who knows who's going to come out on top? I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. This one goes easily 6 games for me. Could very easily go 7 as well. I'm going to go with the Rangers in this one. I'm going to say in 6 games, just because a lot of these guys that they picked up at the deadline have a lot of playoff experience, and that should be enough to get them over the hump for the first round at least. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the West now, but right before we do that, if you guys could, and if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and leave a like on it, put a comment down below. Let me know if you enjoy these kind of prediction videos. I'm trying to do a lot more different stuff to see what I like, what people watching like, things like that. So yeah, just let me know if you really enjoyed this video. If you didn't, then let me know in the comments as well. Give me some advice or what you would like to see differently. And yeah, let's continue on with the predictions here. Starting off in the West, we're going to go to the Colorado Avalanche, taking on the Seattle Kraken. To hardly anyone's surprise, the defending Cup champs went on and win the Central Division again this year, and this time in the first round, they're taking on a Kraken team who made it to the playoffs for the first time in their history. So this is a very fun matchup for them. I don't see it lasting very long though. Similar to the Devils-Rangers matchup, the Kraken just don't have a lot of experience together with this team at least, taking on the defending champs who Granted, have had a lot of injuries throughout the season, but outside of Landeskog, they're fully healthy going into the playoffs here. I don't see them having any issue with the Kraken here. I think Colorado takes this in 5 games. Up next, we got the Dallas Stars taking on the Minnesota Wild. Now, I feel like a lot of people are considering this matchup to be a lot closer than what I think it's going to be. I think Dallas is a much better team. They've got up-and-coming star Jason Robertson. They've got an unreal goalie in Jake Ottinger, who was the only reason they made the playoffs last year. This team is really, really good. They were in first place in the Central the whole season almost, up until the very last day of the season when Colorado took that spot over. And although Minnesota have a few key names and people on their team, they still have a lot of issues with their salary cap, with certain buyouts from other players in years past, and that's really hindering them in kind of getting a more depth on their team. So I think Dallas wins this one. I think they take it in 6 games. Moving swiftly on, we have the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Winnipeg Jets. Now, if you asked me to predict this matchup 3 months ago as opposed to today, it would have been a much more difficult conversation. Winnipeg 3 months ago compared to now is like 2 different teams. Winnipeg was an unreal team. They were fighting for the top spot in the Central all the way up until it felt like January. And they've just kind of fell off. They're in the playoffs, obviously, so they're still a good team. But compared to how they started the season, it's a totally different team. And Vegas, they've just steadied the course. They've been the Vegas Golden Knights. They have always been since they came into the league, really. They've got Mark Stone back from injury now. This team is only getting deeper and deeper as the season goes on. I think Vegas takes this one in 5 games. And last, but certainly not least, we have another rematch from last year's first round, with the Edmonton Oilers up against the Los Angeles Kings. Now, if you remember last year, Edmonton was able to win this series in 6 games, and the LA Kings last year were a lot different team than they are this year. Not necessarily because of the players they got, but because those players have had another year to grow and develop. So I think this year it's going to be a much closer series. Obviously, with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and their depth behind them, it's going to be very difficult to get past them. They are dark horses to win the Cup this year, and I don't think you should take that lightly. I think the Oilers get past the Kings in this round, but I think it's going to go all 7, and it's going to be a very, very tight series. So that's all the first round matchups done. Let's move on to round 2. So that brings us up first with the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Oh boy. Now the history between these two teams speak for themselves, with them meeting up in the playoffs multiple times over the last few years, and Boston always seeming to pull off the W. But this year it could be a little different. Maple Leafs obviously make it past the first round for the first time in over 15 years, and the Bruins, with the pressure of being the best team this league's ever seen, I don't know, could be a very interesting one. And to boot, I've got the Maple Leafs taking this one home. I think it's going to go all 7 games, but I think the Maple Leafs have a run in them. So I think they get past the Bruins in 7 games. Up next in the East, that leaves us with the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers. Now with this matchup, I see it coming down to one key factor, and that's goaltending. Frederik Andersen versus Igor Shesterkin. And whoever steals the show in this series is going to lift their team to the 3rd round. And I think this year, it's going to be Freddie Andersen. I think Shesterkin's going to have a very good first round, but then kind of hit a wall in the 2nd round here. And that leaves the Carolina Hurricanes moving on into the conference finals. I think they take this one in 6 games. Moving back out west, we've got the Avalanche taking on the Stars. Now, given if everyone stays healthy on both of these teams, I think Dallas has the deeper team, and I think they have the better goalie. If Jake Ottinger finds that playoff form like he did against Calgary last season, then this team is going to be very dangerous in this playoffs. I think Dallas is going to sneak out this one solely because of the depth. Obviously, with Colorado winning the Cup last year, they had to lose a few guys due to salary cap issues. And so I think that lack of depth is going to be the reason the Stars win this series. I think it's going to go all 7, but I think the Stars pull it out of the bag. So then the final 2nd round matchup is the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, like I said in the first round there, I think the Edmonton Oilers are a dark horse to win this thing. So I think they get past the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, they made it to the conference final last year, and I think they've got just enough hunger to get past the Vegas Golden Knights. So then, moving on to the conference finals. And in the East, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, there is a stat out there somewhere that says if the Carolina Hurricanes make the playoffs, they either lose in the first round or make it all the way to the Cup Finals. Now, unfortunately, I don't see that happening this year. I think Toronto just has way too much depth on their team this year. Once they get past that first round, they're going to have enough hunger to just go all the way and try and win the whole dang thing. So I think they get past the Hurricanes. I think it's going to go 6 games. And then finally, we have the Western Conference Finals, with the Dallas Stars taking on the Edmonton Oilers. Now, there hasn't been a team from Canada that's won the Stanley Cup since 1993. But fortunately for them, I have 2 Canadian teams in the final. I think the Edmonton Oilers beat the Dallas Stars in a very tightly contested 7-game series that goes down to the wire in every single game. This is going to be a dream matchup for both of these teams. Ottinger, I think, is going to just barely miss out on having enough to pull the Stars across the finish line to the finals this year. I think the Edmonton Oilers make it there in 7 games to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So there you have it. Those are my playoff predictions for the Stanley Cup. Obviously, I'll do another one of these videos right before the finals start and kind of recap how my predictions went today. But until then, I hope you guys really liked this video. If you did, obviously leave a like, hit the subscribe button, comment down below. And yeah, let me know how wrong I'm going to be, because obviously in a week's time, I'm going to be so wrong. I'm going to be very embarrassed. But until that time, I will see you all next time, and take care.